passive-aggressive predator. If there was any sort of inspiration behind the title, I suppose it would be this old roommate and friend that we have who, whenever she'd notice somebody wearing something really comfortable, like say like a really comfy pair of pants or something like that, like if she was in the middle of talking to them, she would kind of continuously keep looking down at the pants, and you could tell that there was this kind of like this benign sort of envy in her eyes, and so like we just kept noticing her doing it, and so eventually we just started referring to her as a kind of like passive-aggressive predator. But I mean, that term could be applied to any number of things, like cats, for example. And I guess like as it pertains to this track, the original idea that sparked it was just kind of like that 4-on-the-floor beat, and then the bass line that the whole thing starts out with, and it has this kind of like lurking, skulking kind of feel to it. And you know, like as is tradition, whenever I start a new track, I'll work out a couple ideas initially, and then eventually, once I feel like something is taking form, then I'll actually go back through my list of stupid terms and titles and stuff that I've written down over the years, and just pick the one that sounds the most like where that track is heading, and then assign it to it. And that's when I hit save for the first time, and then kind of go from there. And that ultimately ends up influencing the feel of the track and kind of where it goes from there. So that whole passive-aggressive predator thing, like I felt like the tune would need to kind of shift between like darker, weirder, more skulkier, if you will, parts, and then some of the more like lighthearted, airy, sort of dreamy little bits to kind of have this dynamic ebb and flow between the lighter and darker aspects of being a passive-aggressive predator. So if I were to describe the elements of the track, I guess it borrows from a bunch of different genres. Anything from like electro, it has like little glitchy elements of like psytrance in there. It's got some like kind of dancey, trancey sections. There's some funk, there's some disco, there's obviously like the more metal riffs and all that, the halftime breakdown and whatnot. Then it kind of jumps between all of those. And so I don't really know if I'd have a specific genre in mind if I were to try to somehow encompass it all into one description, but yeah, it just kind of dances between all of those various elements, and it's hard to pinpoint any one way of describing it, I suppose. So how the artwork came about for this was while I was toying around with the idea of what it ultimately would be, like how the hell do you visually portray a passive-aggressive predator, in the midst of me posting little in-progress snippets of the track on Instagram while I was working on it, somebody mentioned, shout out Dan Wrighton, I hope I'm saying that right, a cat, which, of course, a cat is a passive-aggressive predator. So that planted the seed for this. Basically, yeah, you have this benign like cat pawing at what is essentially like my tuber alias, which I brought back, like the concept of. So originally in, I think, 2017, when I released the second track under the Alyag moniker, like the second official one for this whole electronic project, called Utopian Tuber Era, I had a little depiction on the artwork of myself as a little dreadhawked potato, because I had a dreadhawk at the time still. And so I kind of wanted to bring back that little character and sort of as part of, I guess, my branding, if you will, or just like a little visual cue that'll keep making repeat thematic appearances and cameos throughout subsequent releases. Like I kind of wanted to bring back for this. Seemed like it was the perfect opportunity to do so. And so it's basically me sitting there all grumpy and cross-eyed while this cat is just pawing at the back of my head and just annoying the hell out of me. So I pitched the idea to Becca, my partner in crime, who does a bunch of the artwork because she's an incredible visual artist and way more apt at the iPad sketchy drawing stuff than I am. And so we kind of like just tossed some ideas around and like made some sketches, and then she took it over from there and then did all this incredible shading and like line work and everything else, and even like attached little devil horns kind of on the cat, but they're all stripy and they look kind of benign, and so it just further adds to the theme of the whole thing. And then once she finished all the color work and all that stuff, and then I just dumped it into Photoshop, made like the shoe texture or whatever, just like using some compositing and layering and stuff. Made the title and attached my logo to it, and just chose all the background colors and all that kind of stuff, and that's how it all came to be. And I'm actually pretty stoked with the results. And it even further kind of the cartoony, cheesy aspect of it serves as a kind of juxtaposition to some of the more, I guess, serious sounding elements of the track, which I think it ejects a certain amount of silliness to the whole thing. And as serious as I take my craft, I also kind of don't, and hopefully kind of further reinforces that notion. So yeah, that's the track, and I hope you guys dig it. It was a lot of fun to work on. It was the first track that I had finished in this new space. It's a fun one, definitely one of my favorites so far, and it's a vibe.